high in the Swiss Alps, where the air is crisp and the sun brushes the peaks with gold, lived a little girl whose heart was as bright as the mountain sky. Her name was Heidi. Heidi was just 5 years old, an orphan since she could barely walk. Her parents had passed away when she was still a baby, and Aunt Dete had raised her ever since. Now they climbed a steep mountain trail, path winding ever upward. In Heidi's small hands she held a bundle of clothes, and in her heart a quiet sense of wonder. Aunt Dete walked ahead, brisk and unsmiling, her city shoes crunching against gravel and grass. She had taken a job in Frankfurt, and could no longer care for the child. So, perhaps a bit reluctantly, she brought Heidi to live with her grandfather, a man the villagers called stern, strange, and entirely alone. Heidi had never met him. She didn't ask questions. She only gazed up at the towering peaks, her eyes wide with curiosity. The mountains didn't frighten her. They called to her. Aunt Dete, tired and short of breath, finally muttered,
"We're almost there, Heidi.
her voice sharp and impatient.
Your grandfather will take care of you now."
People in the village had warned of the old man, the one who lived in a wooden cabin high on the cliffs. They said he was gruff, strange, and liked to be left alone. But Heidi wasn't afraid, not even a little. When they reached the hut, a tall, gray-bearded man stepped out. His eyes were piercing, his expression unreadable.
"This is your granddaughter,"
Aunt Dete said without ceremony.
"I'm needed in Frankfurt. She's your responsibility now."
And just like that, without a hug, without a goodbye, Aunt Dete turned and vanished down the mountain path. Heidi stood still, beneath the wide alpine sky, about to begin a new chapter, one that would change many lives, including her own. At first, the grandfather said little. His face was stern, his voice gruff. He wasn't used to company, especially not a little girl with twinkling eyes and endless questions. But Heidi's laughter soon filled the wooden cabin, like sunlight spilling through the windows. She explored every corner, chased the goats through the meadow, and returned with cheeks flushed and eyes sparkling. Each evening, she sat by the fire, swinging her legs, asking about the stars, the mountains, and the world beyond. And the old man, despite himself, began to smile. More and more, he started speaking in softer tones, telling her the names of wildflowers, pointing out constellations in the night sky. Something in his heart, long asleep, was waking up again. He built her a bed of hay in the loft, a cozy nook under the slanted roof. He lined it with soft woolen blankets and tucked in a little lantern to keep her warm. To Heidi, felt like a palace in the clouds. She would snuggle and sigh happily and drift off to sleep with the sound of wind in the trees. No fancy bed could ever compare. Every day, she climbed the mountain with Peter, the goatherd boy, chasing butterflies and wildflowers, while the goats grazed nearby. The air was sweet, the sun kissed her cheeks, and her laughter danced across the hills. In those moments, Heidi felt as free as the breeze. Peter was shy at first, a quiet boy with tousled hair, who spent most of his days herding goats across the hills. But Heidi's cheerful spirit, her giggles and curiosity, soon melted his silence. They became fast friends, like sunshine and sky, always together. Each morning, Peter would whistle and Heidi would come running. They'd climb the grassy slopes, hand in hand, laughing as the wind danced around them. They shared simple meals, chunks of bread, bits of cheese, and wild berries, plucked fresh from the bushes. In the afternoons, they'd lie on the soft grass, watching clouds drift lazily across the sky, fluffy and white, like the goats they cared for. Sometimes they spotted shapes, a lion, a castle, a ship sailing through the blue. With Peter by her side, the mountains felt even more magical. And for the first time in a long while, Peter laughed too. Not just once, but again and again.
Look, Peter!
Heidi would say, eyes wide with wonder, pointing up at the sky.
That one looks like a castle.
Her voice danced with excitement, as if the clouds were part of a story only she could see. Peter glanced up, then looked at her, and simply grinned, nodding quietly. He didn't say much. He never did. But in his heart, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Joy, comfort, a friend. Heidi didn't mind the silence. She just smiled back, happy to share the sky with someone who understood, without needing many words. One day, without warning, Aunt Dete returned. She wore fine city clothes, a feathered hat, polished boots, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes.
Heidi,
She said sweetly, kneeling beside her.
come with me to Frankfurt. A wealthy family wants a companion for their daughter. You'll have toys, warm beds. You'll be treated like a princess.
Her voice was soft, but her hands were firm. Heidi looked up at her grandfather, eyes wide, heart pounding. She didn't want to leave the mountains, or the goats, or Peter, or the warm fire in the cabin loft. But before she could protest, before she could even find her voice, Dete had taken her hand and turned back down the path.
Just for a while.
Dete said briskly.
You'll come back soon.
The old man stood in silence, his jaw clenched, his heart heavy, and Heidi, glancing back with teary eyes, watched the cabin grow smaller until it disappeared behind the trees. Frankfurt was nothing like the mountains. No birdsong, no goats, no fresh breeze. Only stone streets, towering buildings, and a sky that felt far too small. Heidi was brought to the home of the Seasmans, a wealthy family whose daughter Clara was confined to a wheelchair. The doors were grand, the rooms filled with velvet and gold, but none of it felt like home. Clara was a gentle soul, her pale blue eyes glowing, easing Heidi's loneliness. Soon, they became inseparable. Every afternoon, Heidi's bright voice wove mountain tales, goats with jingling bells, wildflowers like fallen stars, Peter's whistling, and her grandfather's warm laughter. Her words painted vibrant pictures, breathing life into the cold mansion. Even stern Miss Rottenmeier, her gaze softening, lingered at the door, touched by Heidi's boundless joy. Heidi's journey to read began, a blend of patient tutoring and discovery. But it wasn't easy. She stumbled over letters, mixing B and D. Her cheeks flushed, while her tutor mopped his brow. Clara's grandmother, a silver-haired lady, smiled kindly.
Take your time. Books are wondrous.
Slowly, Heidi's confidence grew. One day, she read aloud, her voice halting, but triumphant, her smile radiant. Grandmother gifted her a picture book, pages alive with mountain flowers and goats. Heidi clutched it, eyes sparkling.
I'll show Clara my mountains.
Reading became her new adventure. But Heidi missed the Alps terribly. At night, she couldn't sleep. Her smile faded. She grew thinner, her spirit quietly fading. The grand house felt colder, the silence heavier. She longed for the green meadows and the sound of wind in the trees, for the goats, the wildflowers, and the sky that stretched forever. Clara's father noticed the change. Heidi had grown pale, quiet, and her laughter had all but vanished. He called in a kind doctor, who knelt beside her and listened carefully to her soft, fading voice.
"She's not sick,"
he said gently.
"She's homesick. Let the child return to mountains."
Clara's eyes welled with tears, but she smiled bravely.
"I'll write you letters,"
she whispered. And so, with warm farewells and a teary goodbye from Clara, Heidi returned home, back to the sky, the goats, and the green hills she loved. The grandfather's eyes glistened when he saw her running toward the cabin. She was thinner, her cheeks a little pale, but her joy returned instantly. She leapt into his arms, and he caught her with a trembling smile. He hugged her tightly, longer than ever before, as if afraid to let go again. In that embrace, time melted away, and everything felt right once more. Even Peter skipped down the slope to greet her, his grin as wide as the valley, his sun-kissed hair tousled by the alpine breeze. His shepherd's crook tapped a rhythm of joy on the grassy trail. Behind him, the goats pranced merrily, as if sensing the happiness in the air. Heidi stood still for a moment, eyes wide, heart full. The towering Alps stood behind her, like a welcome embrace. Birdsong fluttered through the trees, wildflowers nodded in the breeze, and every sound, every scent whispered the same thing. Heidi was home. And one spring morning a letter arrived. Clara was coming to visit. The grandfather prepared the cabin carefully, dusting the windows, sweeping the floors, and setting out fresh flowers. Peter helped carry a chair up the path, barefoot as always, whistling with excitement. When Clara arrived, the mountain air worked its magic. Her cheeks turned rosy, her laughter returned, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly alive. Day by day, Clara's strength grew. Her eyes sparkled with new energy, and her laughter echoed through the hills. One morning, with the sky painted gold, she stood, shaky but determined, and took a step, then another, and another. Heidi gasped. Peter nearly dropped his hat. Clara was walking, and the mountains seemed to cheer with joy. Tears filled everyone's eyes. Even Peter, shy as ever, clapped and smiled. The grandfather's heart swelled with pride as he pulled them all into a big, joyful hug. Heidi beamed, her eyes shining like the mountain sky. Clara laughed, standing strong beside her friends, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. The Alps echoed with laughter, and the hills bloomed with happiness. Clara returned to Frankfurt, stronger and happier than ever. Her father, overjoyed, sent gifts and letters, thanking Heidi and her grandfather for giving Clara her strength back. And the old man, once feared by the villagers, now welcomed them into his home with open arms and a heart full of peace. He smiled more than he ever had, and laughter filled the cabin once again. The mountains had brought them together, and love had made them whole. And so, high in the Swiss Alps, a little girl changed the hearts of everyone she met, but not with riches, but with kindness, laughter, and love. She taught them to see beauty in simple things, to listen to the wind, and to hold joy close. Heidi's story was not just about the mountains. but about finding home, wherever the heart is free. This is the story of Heidi, who brought joy to the mountains, the city, and beyond. With a heart full of wonder and a spirit full of love, she reminded everyone that even the smallest voice can echo across valleys and brighten the world. If Heidi's story warmed your heart, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who loves timeless tales. See you in the next story.